Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt Pamonte. This is Wyatt Darby. Getting ready to kick off our second semifinal match. If you just watched that really long slog, it was really good though from Matt Hoey, who was our defending and now dethroned champion. Lost his crown to Sam Black several times within that game. Sam's going to have a chance to win the championship this year. He is our first finalist, and we're going to put our second finalist in with this second semifinal match.
Yeah, it's incredible. Matt Hoey absolutely clawing back at an epic game too, and hopefully this next semifinal can be half as good as that one. We're going to see Ray Huang with his Bant control deck battling against Grant Wozniak, 5-color control and legacy. I'm over the moon on Grant. He played 13 colors across 3 formats. Just unbelievable.
Pretty nice stuff. So yeah, as you mentioned, we are going to play some Legacy action here again, which is pretty exciting. We've actually shown a lot of Legacy over the past several rounds here in our elimination rounds.
Yeah, it's great. I think the format it seems like it's in an awesome place. The gameplay has been really dynamic back and forth. We've seen a lot of really fair slugfests, which is exactly the kind of Magic that I'd sign up for. And this one's going to be, I think, a pretty big grind, too.
Yeah, I actually couldn't believe that Matt Hoy was able to win that second game against Sam Black. I was shocked. It went really long, and I thought that favored Sam as his deck gets thinner. There's more Green Sun Zenith. He has bigger payoff cards, I thought, than Matt had. And, I mean, Matt just took him down. So, looking forward to more of this. Again, we have 5-color control, as you mentioned. It kind of looks like a throwback to me of some of the Sultai decks that had, like, Hymn to Torak, Inquisition. This one with the white has Swords to Plowshares, and then now there's Oko, there's Arkham's Astrolabes in here. So, Grant is going to be battling with that against Ray, who's playing this. It's Bant Miracles is what it looks like here. So there's a bunch of Terminus. The addition of Icefang Kodo helps out. So we'll jump down there and get ready to play some more Legacy action here for everybody. All right, so you see on the right, Grant Wozniak against Ray, who's our 8 seed. He won a really interesting. He's been playing a lot of Icefang Kodos this weekend.
Yeah, the difference between Ray's modern and legacy deck is actually substantially less than I would have expected looking at it. Icefang Quaddle, Baleful Strix has long been a legacy mainstay, and Quaddle is like it seems almost better in a lot of matchups. Typically when you're attacking into a Baleful Strix, but not necessarily with this Bant version and the Quaddle.
That is true. So Grant leads off on Flooded String and a fetch out an Underground Sea. If he has one of those discard spells that are available, he's going to go with Ponder here. So, all right, so get a quick look at Grant's deck here. If you want to take a quick snapshot, do so just real quick while he resolves this Ponder. I mentioned the Hymn to Torax and the thoughts. He's probably going to be pretty important in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely much more discard than I've seen in a lot of Legacy lately. And actually, pretty surprising that Grant was able to do so well in the format. It just seems like this version is particularly vulnerable to Veil of Summer.
Yeah.
So that's a card that Ray is pretty well equipped with, and I'm actually pretty excited to see how that develops, mostly over the post-board games.
All right, so let's see what Grant decides to do with that Ponder. Going to go ahead and... All right, so draws a card and then going to fetch out here with that Verdant Catacombs. Ray just played a Tropical Island for the turn and passed back. This definitely looks like a Hymn to Torak turn.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable here. And actually one thing that's interesting is, this tournament has, I don't think, seen Grant really punished too much for his 5 colors. Ray is not packing any Wastelands in his deck, and it's going to be, I think Grant should be able to unlock all the power of these colors when his mana is probably going to be quite free.
All right, so here comes that Hymn to Torak, and Ray is going to Brainstorm here in response. Going to find a few cards. There's a Terminus in there. And Ray just kind of going to Brainstorm here in order to protect some of those cards that are important here. I know there was a Jace the Mind Sculptor hanging out in there. Looks like he's going to try and protect that one and something else as he's going to randomize his cards. And then Grant's going to roll a couple dice here to get 2 cards.
Yeah, pretty interesting change of pace. Normally when you brainstorm with miracles in your hand, you can't wait to put them back on top.
Yeah.
But Terminus is pretty poor in the control mirror, so those are actually staying firmly in the hand, and Ray's saying, please get these dead sweepers out of my hand. So this is actually going to be, I think, a pretty high variance Hymn to Torak and exactly how the dice roll.
All right, so there's 1 and 7. And Grant's going to randomize here with, there's number 3. And then the 5th card. So Terminus gone. Nice.
Yeah, excellent. Ray can't be minding that too much. I don't believe he has a shortage of lands either. So still being able to make 3 consecutive land drops if he wants it, and that's exactly what he needs to play this Jace that he hit on top.
All right, so Ray going to lead off on a Ponder here with that Tropical Island. Bunch of stuff here. Let's see. So he's got a Force of Negation. Looked like it was one of those cards, which he's going to take. Let's see here. Going to play out a Misty Rainforest. Pass back to Grant.
And you know, one thing that also makes me a little bit surprised by the discard heavy build of Grant being so successful, as we see a pretty critical second him to Turok, is Mystic Sanctuary being so excellent against discard spells to give you resilience even through it. But Grant starting the game with a couple 2-for-1s, even if they're not exactly hitting premium cards, the advantage does build pretty fast.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, wow, 2 lands. I think Grant was actually on a Molta 6 here, too. So he's definitely nullified his mulligan or made it even here for Ray. So down to 3 cards here. He took both lands that Ray had, actually, which is mega important.
Yeah, all of a sudden this Jace is looking very far away. The Force of Negation, not really what you want to be doing in a Faramir, you know, straight up 2-for-1ing yourself. And yeah, that Mystic Sanctuary, Astrolabe, and Force those cards seem not ideal. I'm not sure if Ray might decide to ship that away. I think the only card he's really interested in is the Astrolabe. So he might put that on top, draw, crack the fetch, and play the Astrolabe.
Yeah, yep. You got a good read on that one. So Ray's going to go looking here for a snow-covered island. And he did pick up that Astrolabe off the Ponder here. It's definitely an interesting sequence there. I mean, Grant has 2 of his 3 Hymn to Torox. I think it's probably the best he can do to start off in this matchup. There's the Astrolabe for Ray. Going to draw a card here. He's found a Brainstorm. All right.
Yeah, so we'll see if Grant has the opportunity to slam a high leverage threat. If Ray has to, you know, cast this Force on something like a, say, Oko, that really does leave his hand incredibly thin and pretty reliant on the Brainstorm to find him enough action.
Yeah, and Grant's missing tons of land drops here as well. Looks like Ray misses again, picks up an Oko. He's got a lot of high impact cards, but definitely short on the lands here. Comes a Brainstorm. And there are couple lands and Astrolabe. That's pretty much what the doctor ordered there for Ray.
Yeah, an opportunity to dump this dead Terminus, and you know, being able to cantrip your way up the chain and at least have the opportunity to attempt a Mind Sculptor is going to be pretty appealing. Although I'm not exactly sure how much you want to be the first person to blink in these legacy control mirrors.
Yeah, let's see. So Ray deciding what cards to put back with that Brainstorm. Doing some thinking here. Looks like that Plains and the Terminus is going to go back. Yeah, he's going to try and get rid of some of these cards at least. He's got that fetch land in hand to make this a perfect Brainstorm. So he's going to send those back to the top. And he's going to funnel Snowman into the Astrolabe and Astrolabe again here. Going to draw that Plains back. And there's that land for Ray. So I believe there's a Terminus on top of his deck that he is floating. So if he wants it, he can keep it. If not, he's probably going to fetch it away here. So Grant looks like he's just passing. And Ray going to untap and fetch here. And going to get a land out.
Yeah, curious exactly the contents of Grant's hand. I mean, most cantrips I think would be getting fired off here out of desperation. I think at least one Jason Oko, and yeah, kind of unfortunate Grant is just stuck on the Haymakers and no real way to seemingly protect them with discard or lead into them with cantrips.
Yeah, the double him was really great, but he needed a threat to follow it up with, and it just doesn't end up getting there yet. So Ray going to draw for the turn. There's a Ponder hanging out in there. Yeah, Ray has a bunch of time here, and he has that Spell Pierce in hand, so he's got some time to work with, as well as a Force. So he's going to go for Jace, and I think Grant has a Force. Looks like a Drown in the Lock is the card instead. He's going to Drown in the Lock Jace the Mind Sculptor. That is... I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. You know, if Ray was expecting that Jace to be a 2-for-1, you know, that really does change the dynamic of card advantage. And looks like Grant is going to slam the first of presumably several threats in a row with Oko. And I mean, Ray can't not force that, right? And now he's down to just his lone Planeswalker in hands.
Yeah, and there goes Oko's exiled there from that Force of Negation.
And, the critical thing about Force of Negation, it's not Force of Will. You can't use it to protect your spells on your own turn.
Right.
So he wasn't able to pick a fight, and we see Oko,
Will.
drawing a counterspell back from Grant. And with Jace getting pitched, I mean, I do believe Grant has some more threats in his hand. Yeah, after the dust has settled, it looks like Grant is slightly up.
Yeah, he's actually looks like in a good spot here. I think is that a Teferi Time Raveler?
Yeah, that's the main component, of the white splash, 3 copies of Teferi. And I mean, slamming that turns a lot of Ray's top decks into kind of blinks. Any of the extra counter spells are all quite poor, and no real power on the board to contest.
Yeah, I kind of laughed earlier about Teferi Time Raveler with a basic Swampin deck, but being able to bounce your own Astrolabe is certainly powerful here. And funneling the mana in there first, and there's a Bayou for Grant. So Grant's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, just a huge card advantage play. And, Ray with Terminus, Swords to Plowshares, these cards are just so poor because all the creatures in Grant's deck, accrue value on entering the battlefield. Yep. Cleaning them up afterwards is just not where you want to be fighting them.
Yeah, and here comes an Astrolabe. He's going to draw a card here. Grant going to tick up Teferi Time Raveler. This looks like Baleful Strix, I think, is the play here. Here's Baleful Strix, a fair version of Icefang Kotal. And Grant picks up another card. Yeah, Grant's in pretty great shape here, I think. Volcanic Island, because why not? Just got to fit all the colors in there.
Yeah, just, getting ready for the sideboard games where Pyroblast makes its way in.
Yeah. And then there's another Hymn to Turok, so he's going to get both cards out of Ray's hand. Not great hits, but hey, Ray has no cards now, and Grant can see kind of a path to victory here. So there's a Ponder now for Ray, trying to get a little bit of help. Flusterstorm, Entreat the Angels, and a Sword Splasher is not exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah, the Angel tokens lining up pretty poorly against potential Teferi bounce and Strix blocking. And, interesting from Grant, there was some possibility of draw stepping that him. It's all about if you have the read on how good Ray's current cards are.
Yeah.
But critically, what Teferi did there as well was stop a Swords tagging the Strix in response. And now we see Coatl to start to grind Ray back in, but that's, can only hope to trade with Grant's Bird.
Yeah, and Ray actually picked up a Snapcaster Mage there, which is pretty nice pickup. All the Hymn to Toroks are out of Grant's deck now. Let's see where he leads. He's done another Astrolabe.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see Snapcaster him in this next draw step. And that is just going to be... That feels like it might be the final nail in the coffin. I know the Haymakers in these control decks are powerful enough to pull you back from all kinds of spots, but...
Snapcaster Mage, target Hymn to Turok, and he gets to cast that in Ray's draw step thanks to Teferi, and Ray's left with nothing. It's quite painful. Grant's board is really built out now. And there's a block for Grant. That Baleful Strix, and he's just got so much going on. Only thing he's looking for is just one more way to end the game. Snapcaster might go the distance, though, at this rate.
Yeah, and there's a very real possibility of that. We might see in a couple turns' time Teferi reset Snapcaster for some more draw step him action.
Yeah.
That's play is going to take several turns to set up, and Ray can certainly just dump spells out of his hand. But doing so will kind of cut the effectiveness of a Brainstorm and the Jace, the Planeswalker. They can do that every turn.
Yeah, Ray has been Hymn to Turok 4 times this game. That's pretty brutal stuff.
That's just good clean lemon.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great.
I don't know the last time Jund has been playable in Legacy, but this is close enough for me.
All right, so Grant looking through his deck as Ray passes back. And gonna tap that Volcanic Island. Doesn't have a ton of uses. Gonna ponder here. Here's Grant. All right. Yeah, that's not good. If he's leaving those there, that is not good news for Ray. All right, so he does indeed leave the spells there. Going to fetch away the bad ones. Legacy's got a lot of those moving parts, like Ray's Modern deck has a ton of those moving parts too, with Icefang, with Astrolabe, with Mystic Sanctuary. Legacy has tons of those moving parts with the deck manipulation through ponders and brainstorms and things like that. So definitely lots going on here.
Yeah, is it crazy that I'm almost half surprised Grant isn't playing Mystic Sanctuary at all?
Hey, he could probably do it. He's got all these other lands in there.
I know it seems a little bit greedy, but I don't know. We see 4 different duels in the field that are all would help with that.
What land did he fetch there?
Tundra, I believe.
He fetched Tundra out with Underground Sea. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. With the Verdant Catacombs? Yeah, just double check for me. Thank you. We got quick question for we asked our director to phone down to make sure that that was the correct land there. I thought it was a Tundra. I couldn't tell if it was out of Scrubland. I don't think he's playing Scrubland, even though he's playing every other.
There is one Scrubland.
Yep, one Scrubland. I can't tell if it's Tundra or Scrubland there, so we'll make sure.
Looks pretty icy, so I'm going to guess blue-white.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll get that fixed for everybody.
Definitely, I don't think any malice there. A situation where Grant's super far ahead and double Astrolabe means the mana is kind of trivial at this point anyway. So
right.
Definitely something that a mistake that happens when your deck has all 5 colors and fetches it presumably can always get it always gets blue, sometimes just not the white too.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get that fixed. So Morgan went with our head dredge is going to rewind the game. It looks like here, which makes sense. Going to put that land back in the deck, and then Grant is going to fetch again as nothing has changed. So going to shuffle up.
Yeah, the beauty of Teferi Time Raveler means there's not many opportunities for opponents to have responses that messy the fixes very much. So good guy Teferi, keeping the game nice and clean.
All right, so Grant going to fetch here. And this time he's going to get a source that is available to snag with that Verdant Catacombs in a tropical island. Yeah, nothing. It just happens. I mean, it's easier on Magic Online or on Arena when all the lands just highlight for you. They only show you the ones you can take. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, it shows you the ones that you can take, and then you have to file a compensation request for not being able to get a Tundra off that.
Yeah, that's it. Brutal stuff. All right, so Grant gonna ponder here, draw a card. All right, and Ray pass back, and it's Grant's turn. Looks like he drew an Oko maybe for the turn. That's pretty good. All right. Come putting Ray to 12 here. That Snapcaster doing lots of work.
Yeah, not the fastest clock, but with Teferi cutting out any, Miracle to Entreat the Angels, Grant's really stacking his hand, turning off counterspell draws from Ray. There's just not much of relevance that Ray can find, and yeah, I think that means, well, this snap might not be good enough to close the game, but whatever comes after it, I bet will.
How bad does it feel wow, is Grant really going to drown this? Yeah, so Ray goes for a Swords to Plowshares on a Snapcaster Mage, and Grant, in a show of strength, drowns that in the lock.
Yeah, and I will say the first round, super impressive. This one, that's more of a style point, just kind of cutting a few turns off the back end. And yeah, just that's the kind of counterspell that makes me a little bit more apt to concede when I have to fight through that.
Yep. And this Teferi. Teferi has been so good in every game I've watched. I mean, all these 3-mana Planeswalkers are just kind of bonkers. You mentioned the play earlier of being able to bounce the Snapcaster Mage with Teferi, and Grant goes for that here. You see Teferi on the screen there. That static line of text is kind of what dominates here. That each opponents can cast spells. Only at times they can cast a sorcery, which is pretty brutal. Yeah, and man, just another snap him to Torak. I think that's 10 cards that Ray's discarded now.
Because the first 8 just weren't enough,
That's
right?
not enough. Yeah, this is brutal. All right.
Let's see. Was this maybe attempted during the draw step when Grant had just down-ticked the Teferi instead of plussing, I think might be?
It could be. So the important line of text there on that Teferi, you have to plus in order to cast those sorceries at instant speed. So,
I mean, the reality of the situation, Teferi, again, shutting down the 2 counterspells in Ray's hand. So whether they're in hand or in the graveyard, not a particularly large difference, but do want to make sure. It looks like the fix is Grant does just get the Snapcaster as a 2-1, kind of where he was before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think from Grant's perspective, really the best thing to find, probably an Oko, elking these astrolabes and accelerating the clock by a little bit, just closing the window for Ray to, potentially start to come back, although that's more of a 5-step process from the band control side.
Comes another attack for 2 here. Going to put Ray down to 6, I believe. And Grant's going to fire off. Oh, good. The 11th discard spell, I believe, this game. That's nice. Just in case. Just in case.
Yeah, Grant was our first quarterfinal of the day about 4 or 5 hours ago, so it's just good to get the game actions. Just take as many as you can, kind of shake the rust off here before the semis and finals if he's able to take this match down.
All right.
And here we do see a Snapcaster, the first relevant draw in several turns for Ray. Tried his best.
Yep, he sure did. That's going to get Force of Will. Then Ray says, you know what? We're done here. This is not fun against Teferi. So Grant Wozniak going to win game number 1 over Ray Huang and his Bant control deck. So definitely Grant took a quick mulligan down to 6, but his deck was firing on all cylinders there.
Yeah, those Hymn to Turox were... The first one was only okay, but the second hymn depriving Ray of his 3rd and 4th land, which effectively, removed any possibility of his Jace of getting cast, was huge. And not to mention, those hymns also accelerated how fast Drown of the Lock was turned on completely, and that played a big part in countering the Jace when it did get cast.
Definitely. So I'll take a peek at Ray's main deck here and see kind of where he was weak. He's got these 3 Terminus that we mentioned, the 4 Swords to Plowshares, and the 3 Ice-Wind Kodos. Not really what he wants to see playing against like a more pure control deck. But let's talk about his sideboard and see if it gets better for him post-board here. So he has 1 Containment Priest, a Monastery Mentor, 2 Pyroblast, a Red Elemental Blast, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Veil of Summer, Celestial Purge, a Nature's Claim, a Return to Nature, a Carpet of Flowers, Rest in Peace, and then that additional Volcanic Island here for those red cards in the sideboard, which I assume are going to come in here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be all of the 1-mana interaction, the red cards, Veil of Summer, Monastery Mentor does seem like a pretty strong threat. And I think from Ray's side, the Terminus, the Swords to Plowshares, the creatures don't do enough from Grant's side. And the beauty of Pyro and Red Blast is they're capable of dealing with the Baleful Strix and Snapcaster in much the same way, but with just so many times more versatility.
Yeah, those are great. Ray also has Veil of Summer, which is super important against these discard spells that Grant does have. I would be shocked if those don't come in. Monastery Mentor is a little bit interesting to me. I think he does need more threats that are good, and going wide, I think, is a pretty decent solution for Ray.
Yeah, and I think Carpet of Flowers also seems like a great way to get a big mana advantage in the mirror. And although Grant is 5 colors, those lands are all blue base.
Sure. So let's take a peek here at Grant's sideboard. So he has, I haven't seen Leovold Emissary of Trest in a little while here. So he's got 1 of those, a Plague Engineer, a Liliana of the Last Hope, a Hydroblast, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Swords to Plowshares, because the 2 in the main aren't enough. Another Veil of Summer, 2 Force Negations, a Nihil Spellbomb, a Sylvan Library, and 2 Leyline of the Void. He has a lot of cards here.
Yeah, I think pretty similar on what is appealing compared to Ray's sideboard. The Pyroblast seem excellent. Sylvan Library isn't a particularly easy to deal with threat.
Yeah.
So that seems excellent. And Veil of Summer, it just it's hard for it can even counter a Red Blast trying to counter back, even though it is not a blue or black spell. Just the extent of what Veil does, it never ceases to amaze. I think it surprises me every day.
Yeah, that card's really good. I wonder again about Grant's deck too, if he wants something like Leovold. I don't think that he does. Just to have more threats. I think he's pretty safe playing the longer control deck like we just watched him do. I mean, Liliana, the Last Hope, though, is definitely a card I expect him to bring in.
Yeah, and Liliana does seem quite strong. Honestly, Leovold's just, card denial static might be worth it by itself. Being able to constrain the brainstorms and ponders and effectively turn off a lot of cards in Ray's deck, much like the Teferi Time Raveler can.
Yeah, definitely excited to see what they do here. Liliana, the Last Hope, is one we've seen in a bunch of these control decks. We even saw it back when Grixis Delver was a thing. Obviously, it's good against killing Delvers and killing young Pyromancers and things like that. But on its own, it's just individually powerful, because you can take it up over and over. it's a ticking time bomb. If you let that thing go off, the game's over.
Yeah, and in this matchup, I mean, it does kill all the natural creatures that you can expect your opponent to have. You
Yeah.
know, cleaning up Coatls and Snapcasters for free is great. It's just a question of can it survive the Elk beatdowns and, you know, Monastery Mentor
Yeah.
if that comes in too. So I think the card does seem strong, and I would expect it here. It just seems like these decks are going to be just so incredibly threat dense for these post-war games.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just kind of still laughing about that Drown in the Lock on a Jace the Mind Sculptor, which I've never seen. Drown in the Lock's one of those cards I've experimented with in Modern quite a bit. I think it's probably okay in Legacy too. I mean, it looked pretty decent there. I'm wondering if that card's going to find a home eventually.
I think so. It's just so efficient. And you know, in formats where fetch lands are the norm, your opponent's doing a lot of work to fill it up for you,
Yeah.
and you haven't lived until you've had a dig through time. Drown in the Lock.
Oh,
That's been my
wow.
Pioneer experience lately, and I don't really mind it. I mean, I've gotten over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's fantastic and a card that is really, you know, I think should probably see more play than it does already. I think it's still kind of getting integrated into deck lists.
Definitely. So I'm thinking about Ray here. He's going to be on the play for game number 2. I'm trying to think of the best start possible for him here. Like, what does a win look like for Ray? It's going to be probably a fast Teferi or an Oko, but it's really hard to resolve those things against so many counterspells for Grant, and he has all these discard effects as well.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways for Ray to begin the game, especially getting a favorable exchange on something like Hymn to Turok met by My Veil of Summer.
Okay.
That would both, you know, put Grant in a situation where he's tapped down, you know, being forced to use a force, and also, you know, I mean, whenever you successfully tag a spell with Veil, you are putting yourself up a card too. So
Yeah.
that type of, you know, natural advantage generating play combined with, you know, just resolving any of the planeswalkers is going to put you in a pretty dominant position from just that moment immediately.
Yeah, I think for Grant, what it kind of looks like is, I mean, both these guys have Astrolabes, and that's obviously a pretty good start. Being able to fix your mana as well is nice. But Grant does have these 6 different discard spells. Obviously, he has the 2 Inquisitions, the Thoughtseize, and then the 3 Hymn to Torax. I think that's probably his best start, followed up by one of these powerful 3-mana Planeswalkers, especially with the addition of Liliana. That's probably his best route to victory here.
Yeah, and kind of a tangent, but I just have to say how much I appreciate the 5-color deck having one fewer Astrolabe than Ray's Bant Miracles deck, because
Yeah, quite funny.
Legacy just feels like the rules are made up when it comes to casting your spells.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Wasteland, I kind of joked around as like the worst it's ever been, probably. And then you look at decks like these, and you're like, man, I would just love to Wasteland this deck. But Astrolabe just kind of lets you do whatever you want, anyways. It's like the new Deathrite Shaman, basically.
Yeah,
Just
you
doesn't
know,
kill you.
sans the acceleration. So
Yeah.
yeah, looks like we're good to go back to the table, and Ray is ready to slam a Tundra and get the
Nice.
second game underway.
All right, so Grant has decent starting hand. Looks like some cantrips, Baleful Strix. Gonna lead off on that Tropical Island, which notably means that he can't Hymn to Torak next turn, actually.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it is very dangerous to do that too. So I feel like Grant would only do that play into potential open veil mana unless he, you know, maybe had force backup or was just feeling
Yep.
kind of desperate about forcing some action.
All right, so Ray gonna lead off on Ponder. Looks like he's gonna shuffle this one away, and then we'll see where he gets to. Let's see. Just taking a look here. Again, man, maybe Ray will want Celestial Purge if he thinks that that Liliana's coming in. I hadn't thought of that one.
Yeah, it's a little bit narrow in a lot of the
Yeah.
you know extent to what it can hit. If he's worried about Leovold, it's another
Yeah.
answer there. And you know the beauty of Legacy is because you have so much filtering and you know Brainstorm in particular, you have the ability to have niche but highly powerful spells. You know, just with the ability to find them and then get rid of them if the situation doesn't call for it.
This looks like an end step Brainstorm here for Grant. Wonder what he's looking for.
Yeah, typically end step, I mean, likely signals that Grant has a plan for his mana on the main phase. You know,
Yeah.
so I could see this as being a situation where it's going to be untapping into, say, a Baleful Strix. I think he might have saw in
Sure.
his hand.
Okay.
But in terms of what he's looking for, I suspect. I mean, the 1-mana interactive spells seem like at the top of the list for me.
Yeah.
Finding a Pyroblast or Veil of Summer could really infrequently seems like it could be bad here.
Okay. So Grant, I'm gonna go ahead and fetch with this Verdant Catacombs. I'm gonna find. I assume Underground sees the pickup here. He's digging through here, looking for a very specific land. Could be that snow-covered swamp.
Yeah. Yeah, snow-covered swamp, tundra.
Yeah.
In this case, it looks like it's actually going to be scrubland
Yeah.
to complete everything but the red mana we need for those Pyroblasts.
Yep.
And yeah, has the opportunity to. There are some haymakers that he could cast. This is maybe a window to try and jam that Sylvan Library if
Yeah.
that's sitting in his hand, and that would be much more impactful in the long term than something a little bit more just immediate value oriented like the Baleful Strix.
Yeah, I think he has a pair of Baleful Strix in hand, actually, is what he's looking to go towards here. So going to fire off the first Baleful Strix. And Ray says, yep, shrugs his shoulders. All right, cool. Grant going to pick up a new card here. Looks like it might actually have been a Hymn to Tourach here. So back to Ray we go.
Yeah, and the Baleful Strix looks pretty innocuous, but what it does do is help you have just a slight front foot on the battlefield to pressure opposing planeswalkers. And, we saw just how brutal Grant's Teferi was able to be when it just resolved and I think got attacked exactly once for the rest of the game. So the 1/1, it's fine. It's not going to break the game open, but it is a fine start for Grant.
All right, and Ray ponders, and he actually leaves that Force of Will on top to kind of protect himself here. So let's see where we end up. Grant takes a draw step here. Gonna attack down Ray down to 19. And then Grant is going to... I wonder if he even wants to commit anything more here. Again, he does have another Baleful Strix, I believe, so decent place to start. Gonna go for Leovold, as we mentioned, coming in out of the board here.
Yeah, testing the waters with another creature, that one that really does a great job of blanking Teferi bounces and Oko Elking, and looks like that one's actually going to prompt a force from Ray. He doesn't want his, Jace turned off. It looks like I think he has a handful of at least one extra cantrip.
Yeah, you see Leovold Emissary of Trest here for the Sultai colors. Each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. And then whenever you or a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. It's a 3/3, not bad.
Yeah, it's sweet. A lot of value. Kind of, any of your permanents getting targeted, really big deal. The first time you, Wasteland and realize that's cantrips for your opponent, you just understand the extent of how powerful Leovold is.
Yeah. You see Ray going to go for a Brainstorm here now as well. That Oko looks pretty appealing. I believe he has a Force of Negation in hand, but I could be wrong here. Looks...
I think it's a Flusterstorm.
Okay,
maybe?
okay.
Which is still pretty strong when it comes to forcing or making your 3-mana Planeswalker resolve. Great thing to counter back with when your opponent's tapped out. But is there an extra mana available to make this play too? I think there might have been a Mystic Sanctuary on top, so it looks like that should be available.
Okay, so we're gonna fetch with this Flooded Strand. Gonna go snag a Tropical Island here. All right. So Grant basically shields down unless he has a force here. And it's not clear to me that he would have fought back over that Leovold. It's definitely an interesting one, but he does have a higher priority target with that. He has that Teferi in hand. He wants to, I think, is the real prize in his hand.
Yeah, the Leovold kind of got enough already. It was a mind rot to Ray. You really hate to have to pull the trigger on force in these grindy blue mirrors. So yeah, I think you just kind of accept your good exchange and move on, and know that your deck is just so threat dense that the next thing resolving is just as deadly as Leovold can be.
Yeah. All right. So Baleful Strix comes in, attacks again, and Grant gonna go for Baleful Strix number 2. Don't want to be countering those most of the time, so draws a new card there for Grant. Ray's got some game here, though. He's got an Ice Fang hanging out.
Yeah, I think the best ways to fight the 1/1s that draw a card is with your own. They're really... Any other way to do it isn't exactly going to be clean, and you do want to have at least some protection for the Teferi that you're kind of... in Oko, too, that you're kind of setting up your game plan around.
Yeah. Looks like Ray picked up another Ice Fang, too, so he's got some game against these Baleful... It's a Baleful Strix almost mirror. It's like... You ever see the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other? That's kind of like what I'm looking at here on the battlefield.
I will say, for all of the kind of made-up commander cards, Baleful Strix is probably my favorite.
Yeah. You see Baleful Strix, the original Ice Fang, Kodo. It's for blue and black. It's a 1/1 flying Death Touch artifact bird creature, and then when it enters the battlefield, it draws a card. So pretty good. All right, now Ray is facing down a Teferi Time Raveler on the stack. And there is Brainstorm for Ray. Probably looking for a counterspell of some sort. He finds one.
Yeah, the only counterspell in his hand previously, Flusterstorm, not going to do the job there. So that's a huge pickup of a blast, and he should be able to win any fight back with said Flusterstorm.
Yeah. All right. Not too bad. So Ray just kind of thinking about what cards to put back with this Brainstorm. I'd be surprised if he doesn't try and protect Jace just in case. I'm not sure if Grant played a land yet this turn or not, but just in case something like a discard spell were to come up. So let's see what Ray ends up doing. He's going to put back...
Yeah, it's a situation where it seems like most of the cards in his hand are quite strong, and he
Yeah.
needs to cast this blast, which is going to force. It's going to require a fetch, so he's giving up some resources that he really
Yeah.
would rather not, and that's it. A kind of unseen benefit. Grant doesn't exactly know how punishing this Brainstorm is, but I think it's going to actually get mitigated a little bit by the Quaddle being cast now. Which,
All right.
let's see. If the backup counter in Ray's hand is in fact a Flusterstorm, this actually removes that possibility, but it does
Yeah.
save a good card for the future.
All right, so here comes that Ice Fang, and then Ray's going to fetch out that red dual land in the Volcanic Island. It's going to go for red Elemental Blast on that Teferi. This one's setting up a battle. Grant going to fetch in response here, so we got quite the stack going on. All right, so Flooded Strand there for Grant. Going to go find the new land. Fetch lands are powerful.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I think it's actually pretty refreshing. Hopefully, we have a chance to see some Pioneer in the finals, just because.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of our broadcast today has been both players shuffling.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of shuffling that goes on with the fetch lands. I was super happy that they banned those right away. Like, they didn't even give them a chance in Pioneer.
Yeah, they banned the 6 most powerful cards from the get-go, the 5 fetch lands and Ray Pandric Ferocidon.
Yeah.
So definitely a good start from Wizards. That was definitely all needed to have a fresh new format.
Okay, let's see. So there's Drown in the lock. All right, well.
Yeah, and again, Drown looking fantastic. It's been able to tag some pretty critical spells in both games now. And
Yeah.
with Teferi on the field with 2 birds for protection, Ray's just going to have a pretty large part of his hand shut off. And I think be in a spot where he just needs to start, playing haymakers. It might be Oko first or Jace. We'll see about that. But
Yeah.
I think it'll be one of them this next turn.
All right, he finds Force Will. 1 card deeper. It's unfortunate for Ray. So let's see. See. There's a Snapcaster Mage there for Ray. What else? What does Grant have left over here? He's doing some thinking.
Yeah, the Snapcaster's attempting to flash back the blast and kind of reset the battlefield. Teferi plussing means that it hasn't actually accrued any value yet. So if it's able to be cleaned up on this exchange, it'll be pretty okay for Ray. But we do see a force that is going to work, courtesy of Teferi. And yeah, now Ray kind of spent only, he did what he could, but now we're going to have to go back to the Slamming Planeswalker plan, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so he does have another land to play, and he has that Oko, which is a nice consolation prize here. So Ray going to fetch out a land. All right, so there's that snow-covered forest. And I assume this Oko is next to get played. Is Oko the most powerful card ever printed, like Planeswalker? Most powerful Planeswalker?
Yeah, Planeswalker for sure. I think
Yeah.
there's a pretty big gap between that and second place.
Yeah.
I think most Planeswalkers in the top 5, probably 3 from this year. Ren and 6 recently banished to the Shadow Realm in terms of legacy, a little bit too
Yeah.
strong, and
All right, so here comes Oko.
yeah, I think it makes sense to start with food. Upgrading either of your Quaddles to a 3/3 isn't going to make them trade any better
Yeah.
against the Death Touching Strix. So
Yeah.
starting the Elk Train next turn is probably the best way to add some new power to your battlefield.
Sure. Oko just starts at so much loyalty. So Ray just thinking about what to do here. Gonna make a food. So Ray's gonna make a food here. And then gonna pass it back to Grant actually. Alright, so
So Grant's hand pretty thin. Looks like a picked up a Hymn to Turok off the top, which
man, that's good.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, Ray, no opportunity to force back if he wants to.
Yeah.
No, I think are there exactly 2 cards sitting in Ray's hand now?
I think so. He's got Abrupt Decay also. Oh my goodness, this is a brutal turn. So Abrupt Decay on that Oko. And then he's going to go for Hymn to Torok here. Man, that's good. And Ray has 2 cards. It's Force of Will and Jace. And going to plus with that Teferi. Man, that's a tough turn. That is a brutal turn there.
Yeah, if Grant were to stack his library to draw whatever card he wanted for that turn, I don't think he could have really picked a better sequence than
Yeah.
that. Putting Ray down to nothing, I mean, the 2 Quaddles are just going to trade off with the Strixes eventually, and now Ray's just kind of going hunting for some more action with a string of Astrolabes.
Yep. Wow, that was rough stuff, man. So drew 2 new cards. One was Astrolabe. Here comes the 3rd card. Swords to Plowshares on a Baleful Strix. That feels terrible. He doesn't have a lot of great targets now, though. Obviously, that Leovold is gone now, so just trying to get some damage on that Teferi.
Yeah, the frustrating thing is, for what's important in these blue mirrors, just Teferi being on the battlefield at all is kind of all that Grant needs. The difference between 1 and 7 loyalty, not particularly large, I think.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so Grant comes attacking Ray here for 1. Gonna bounce the Baleful Strix. It's a good line. Gonna draw a card from Teferi.
Yeah, that is interesting, though. Without a way to interact with one of the Quaddles, that might leave Teferi dead and open up a lot of playables from Ray's side.
Yeah. There's a Baleful Strix. Gonna draw a new card. What else has he got here? And a Ponder for Grant. More Astrolabes, more Brainstorms. This deck is definitely sweet.
Yeah, I think I don't know, most people appreciate the cantrip into cantrip sequence, right? Just like do this all day.
Yeah. I will look at my entire deck every game. So Grant going to shuffle with this Ponder here. Let's see.
Yeah, I think he's in the market for, cards that can help end the game. Teferi is doing a good job interacting with Ray in a positive way, but an Oko or a Jace to really hammer this advantage home, I think, is kind of exactly what Grant wants right now.
Yeah, I was thinking Liliana is like the one that I would love right now if I was him. He's got the extra land wrapped up. Liliana starts to nuke these Ice Fangs down. And he's got nothing here, so... Interesting, going to leave that. The Teferi is exposed on the battlefield here. We'll see. We'll see if Grant has some sort of removal spell. Looks like he picked up his hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would be a little bit surprised if Grant down-ticked without having something, and
Yeah.
looks like it's going to be another Abrupt Decay to make sure this exchange goes exactly as he'd like.
All right, so battlefield clear for Teferi again. Frustrating for Ray's end. He says, how many cards you got? 2 left for Grant. And Ray's going to... Yeah, he needs something. He needs some Planeswalker here or some Council's Judgment. Okay. It's also not awful. He's going to judge Teferi, and Teferi's down. So, we got a game again.
Yeah, if Grant bricks on threats for a turn cycle, Ray could find forces in a timely manner. He could slam his own Jace and actually pull ahead pretty quickly with a turn or two of Brainstorming. But I believe Grant has at least his own Brainstorm left with that fetch land. Is going to make it hard for him to have nothing this turn.
Yeah. So Grant can look at 3 fresh ones here. Looks like an Oko is one of those cards, and that's pretty good. I think it was Oko and an Astrolabe, which is just the dream. That's the dream.
Yeah, powerful Planeswalker and his soon-to-be elk friend.
All right, so Grant going to fetch down here. Down to 17. All right. Polluted Delta goes and gets that 5th color with the Volcanic Island.
Yep, kind of, making sure that the Astrolabe can be elked and not lose access to any of his, necessary and powerful cards that he sideboarded in. Especially, I believe he has all of his blasts remaining in the deck. I don't believe Grant has had the opportunity to cast any of those this game.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right. So he's going to use his colors up here and go for that Oko. Going to make a food this turn. All right. He has Drown in the Lock hanging out in hand, I think, is the card he's holding on to, which is why he didn't play that Astrolabe.
Yeah, really, really perfect last card.
Oh, man, this is such a beating.
Yeah, Ray's got to be feeling like Entreat, one of the best things he can find.
Yeah.
But Graveyard's just too big.
Yeah. And he says, all right, well, yeah, so Entreat needs that second white source. So Ray has to funnel one into the Astrolabe, it looks like here. Yep. Grant says, yeah, I'm just going to drown that one right in the lock. And that was the window Ray needed. He needed that to resolve. If he does that, he's probably in decent shape.
Yeah, I mean, the Angels do naturally kind of dominate the Elks when it comes to, if you ever need to block. And if Grant is using his Oko to shrink your Angels, well, you can't be mad with that exchange either.
Right. See Astrolabe there from Grant, the draw. Swords to Plowshares was the pickup. All right, and then Food getting upgraded into an Elk. Gonna attack Ray down to 10. Man, yeah, this game was a clinic, I think, for Grant for both of them here. It looks like Ray's just a couple turns away from death as he passes back to Grant.
Yeah, definitely the power of the discard shined through, and then we saw, Grant was a player who was really able to resolve Teferi and sit on it for long periods of time, and that just, it made life awful for Ray. He had good cards, he had solid sequences, but without any flexibility on being able to react, well, Grant just was able to, handle any reaction, no problem.
Yeah, Ray down to 4, back up to 7 here. There's a Force of Will in his hand, and a Plains, I believe. So... yeah, definitely not good here. As Grant going to make another food. And the Elks are going to try and cross the finish line here. Going to put Ray down to 1. Grant really doesn't have to do anything else if he doesn't want to the rest of the game. And he's just dead. So Ray's just dead. So Grant going to move to the finals here. He's going to play against Sam Black for the championship.
Yeah, and excellent, performance by Grant, kind of shaking off some of the rust in that first game and really putting up a show for both of these legacy games. And I'm actually really interested to get into our finals because we're going to be able to see potentially all 3 formats featured. And, I'm actually kind of interested in looking at Pioneer in particular. Sam has that Simic Company deck, and I'd actually love to see how that runs into the kind of mid-range grind fest of Grant's 5-color Niv-Mizzet deck.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we got a finals now. We've got Sam Black on one end. We just watched Grant punch his ticket to the finals. Again, just like you mentioned, we're going to have all 3 formats, hopefully, which is going to be really sweet to watch. I know both these guys, I'm just thinking about the deck choices in general. I know Sam didn't win a match with his Pioneer deck, so he's probably a little gun-shy on that one. It'll be interesting to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think it really is a great opportunity to kind of, showcase a large skill set. It's definitely games of Modern don't particularly play like games of Legacy, don't particularly play like games of Pioneer, although there might be some Oko kind of splitting the difference in some of these older formats. Yeah, I'm excited to see it, and hopefully we can find, a full 3-match set.
All right, so let's take a look at our social media real quick before we get out of here. Make sure to hit that follow button. If you haven't already, grab a drink and get prepared for the finals. Again, it's going to be best of 3 matches, so grab a quick snack. Make sure to check out all of our social media here, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram /NRG series. Check us out at nerdragegaming.com if you're looking for any of the awesome lists, Grant's 5-color control deck and Legacy. We're going to take a brief break here. We'll be prepared for the finals, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.